Timeism, a corny view of inflation. Inflation is an inflated word. Inflation is a concept that, like democracy, can be whatever the speaker wants it to be. These definitions are often self-contradictory. Inflation will give you more money, but you can't buy as much because things cost more. It does not take much to show the failure of the classical definition of inflation, that is, more money chasing the same number of goods of inflation. The key is watching the balance of symbols to substance, or the creation of time against the symbols of time. A better definition from timeism is that inflation occurs where there is an imbalancing of symbols to substance of wealth. That is, the ratio of symbols increases relative to the substance. Now for a corny explanation. The 1 bushel of corn to 1 bushel of money is a 1-to-1 ratio. Now for a timeistic analysis. When you get paid, let us say you have 24 hours of wages after taxes, which is the average take-home pay because taxes take 40%, or 16 hours of a 40-hour work week. A simple time progression with corny ratios shows not only the inadequacy of the classical definition, but a need for distinctive, simple, and memorable phrases for inflation's inflated meaning. As year 1, consider a starting point of 1 bushel of corn being worth 1 bushel of money. If prices are stable, then year 2 will have the same ratio of substance to symbols, that is, 1-to-1. The classical definition of inflation is captured in the above image: more money chasing the same goods. If in year 2 the amount of symbols has doubled, then you have inflation at a 1-to-2 ratio. To end the inflation of inflation as an inflated word, humanity needs a distinct, simple, and memorable term for this money inflation: monflation. Monflation causes people to moan because it cheapens people's lives. It is important to realize that the central feature of all inflation, in its old semantic cousins and new semantic offspring, is cheapening. It takes twice as much money to buy 24 hours, which means if you save 24 hours of labor in the bank, you would have 12 hours stolen. Or, what happens in year 2 if half the corn disappears, but the money supply does not change? Inflation reflecting a ratio increased to 1-to-2. Inflation can occur due to shortages of substance, for example, famine or strikes. The money supply can remain the same, but shortages of goods or services causes a negative ratio or balance of substance to symbols. It is a sin when able, willing people are not able to produce, which is why shortage inflation should be called sinflation. Deflation, like inflation, has many meanings, which a few corny images and apropos monikers will clarify. If in year 2 the amount of symbols is halved while the substance does not change, simple or monetary deflation has occurred. The ratio is 2-to-1. The problem with monetary deflation is that it is like bloodletting, causing an anemic economy in which production starts to fall faster than the money supply. This is what happened in the 1930s and is happening in the first years of the 21st century on a global scale. The 1930s depression was analogous to year 2 having less substance and less symbols. The 1930s depression deflation was not simple monetary deflation, but was destructive deflation, which is really a form of inflation based on the ratio of substance to symbols 1-to-2. If the goods, production, and substance are reduced to 1/4 and the money supply is cut in half, One has an inflationary imbalance. The substance contracted faster than the symbols, so that there were both shortages of goods and money. What happens if the politicians and economists organize people to produce twice as much substance for the same amount of symbols? You have productive deflation, that is, lower prices due to increased productivity, a ratio of 2 to 1. Productive deflation occurs when time-saving technology increases the value of symbols with increased quantities of substance. This would be like a farmer producing 2 bushels of corn for the cost of 1 bushel of symbols. One can have deflation of money without inflationary suffering, as the above balance shows. The benefits of productive deflation last to some degree based on what people do with the time savings. If a farmer distills the extra corn into whiskey and drinks during the next planting season, he may end up with no substance or symbols. Likewise, this is a good analogy, if people get drunk on prosperity, then it is only a matter of time before they have no harvest. In many ways, this is why democracy, since the golden age of Greece, has self-destructed. Consider this situation. A farmer sells his crop, and a thief steals half the farmer's money. Suddenly, the creator of substance suffers loss of half of his claim to the substance of wealth that he created. Overall, the substance-symbol ratio has not changed, for it is still 1 to 1. Personally, the farmer has suffered an inflationary loss because his ratio has gone to 1 to 2, while the thief has an astronomical greedy gain of 1 to 0. Consider this situation. The average worker sells his pension money for 401k stock, and legal thieves steal at least half of the farmer's stock value by printing more stock. You have the same balance of substance to symbols, but the creator of substance has suffered a loss of half of his ownership of real wealth to the symbol thief. What should it be called? The creators have competition from thieves, so this competition inflation is coflation. Coflation is competition inflation due to someone getting symbols without producing any goods or services. For example, illegal thievery, legal welfare, or legal wealth-fare. The ratio of 1 to 0 means someone got something for nothing, which in a zero-sum world means that someone else lost something for nothing. In this example, the farmer lost and the thief got. If tenured economists and habitual politicians legalize people getting something for nothing, it is only a matter of time before farmers stop farming to become legal thieves. As described in the latter third of this slideshow, that is what has happened. When you think of inflation, sinflation, monflation, or coflation, it is important to recognize the synonymity with cheapening. In all its forms, inflation cheapens the quality of life, as can be found in its semantic cousins, flatulence, flattery, and infatuation. The suffix flation can be appended to common terms to show how they contribute to overall inflation. When the stock market is used to steal wealth through symbol playing, that is stockflation. When legislators pass laws that transfer wealth, that is legislation. Application of this corny model of inflation shows how the last 20 years were a massive transfer of wealth from the creators of substance to the manipulators of symbols. Like the farmer who sells his excess corn for symbols of wealth, this image represents the average worker trading his excess weekly time for symbols of time or wealth. This is the initial stock buy, a ratio of 1 to 1. The numbers don't really matter as much as the ratio of substance of time at work to the symbols of time storage. The farmer's bushel of corn is his substance of his time at work, while the basket of money is the symbol of time storage. At year 2, if there has been no change in production or the economy, and most importantly, no change in the quantity of stocks, symbols of ownership, then the ratio after a year will still be 1 to 1. But what if the quantity of stocks increases? This is monflation, that is, money inflation. This is the effect of stock options for corporate executives and directors.